yeah, we'll kick things off anyway. So hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. We're making a little bit of a change to how we're going to do Fireside for this particular week. This week we're going to be doing an educational series focused around best practice wallet and fund security. It's come to our attention that many of our users over the last week have actually fallen victim to scams, attempts at retrieving seed phrases, people have even interacted with dodgy contracts. So given our recent DNS attack as well on top of this, we feel it would be beneficial to have a collective discussion around security and best practices to ensure you don't fall victim to the scam trap. So first off, we'll be looking at, and if I could turn everybody's attention to the Fireside chat, I'll be posting the visuals to the slides as I talk people through this. So essentially, look, there's three potential personal portfolio vectors that we'll be focusing this presentation around today. The first being social engineering, the second being phishing, and the third being a smart contract exploit, which falls into two separate categories surrounding an intentionally malicious smart contract and then a innocent smart contract that has been exploited. So social engineering is when a person pretends to be an official of a project that they're not legitimately a part of. These people will usually try to socially engineer you to gain your trust and then request for information about your wallet, or even send you a link that has malicious intentions, such as getting you to approve a wallet interaction with a smart contract that's designed to take your funds, or simply request for your key phrases. Phishing is similar to the above, but it can work in conjunction with social engineering. Phishing is the process of essentially setting up something that mimics something else that is legitimate, but that isn't necessarily legitimate. Our recent DNS attack is an example of this, whereby the attacker was able to gain control over our domain name and then point that domain name to a site that was a phishing site that looked like SpiritSwap but wasn't actually SpiritSwap. A key difference here is, rather than just asking you to hand over your keys or asking you to interact with a malicious smart contract, the site's going one step further by actually, can ask you to download corrupt executable files that contain malicious material such as keyloggers, etc. And then the third point being smart contract exploits. So, these are smart contracts that are basically either designed to take your funds from you, or it's an innocent smart contract that has been exploited via a loophole within the mechanics and the design of that smart contract. So let's dig a little bit deeper here and have a look at how to spot some of the red flags surrounding these specific scenarios. So firstly, looking at social engineering. And I'll just paste that slide in there. So social engineering is, one of the most common ways for an attacker to try and steal your hard-earned crypto. Generally, it involves someone contacting you first. You may have been in a server asking for help, and as a result, someone is messaging you, offering you for help. This is just one example, but the rule of thumb is don't interact with anyone asking you for your personal information. Treat every single contact that you have in this space as suspicious. So let's look at these red flags in detail surrounding social engineering. The first being someone contacting you out of the blue. So just remember, mods will never DM first. If you ever get an unsolicited direct message from anybody, even if they aren't pretending to be a mod, don't engage them. Report them to the server's moderators and close the DM as soon as possible. The second being someone trying to send you links to click on. Again, never click on any links or download anything that people send you. The only links that you'll ever need are found in the protocol's official documentation. This includes Google, but we'll cover that under phishing attacks later on. The third being if someone's asking you for personal information. So if someone's asking you for personal information of any kind, don't give it to them. If someone walked up to you off the street asking you about where you live, your social security number, your kids' names, you wouldn't give it to them, would you? Personally, I'd tell them to fuck off. Treat crypto as the same. Fourth point being, if something's too good to be true, it usually is. Stick with your intuition. It's often right. If something seems off, ask a community member or respected moderator for their thoughts on, what you're seeing here. Peer reviewing is, a great way that we can all cohesively stick together and support one another. The more often than not, you'll actually find someone who's already fallen for the same trick, and subsequently they'll warn you off it. Just make sure to never go posting links that you might have been sent in public forums. You'll only expose others to the same potential risk that you're trying to investigate. And I'll just post the slide for phishing.
I think Nazar is looking to fix the permissions so that we could just go to general chat so you can share your screen. It might be easier for you.
Okay.
Just Nick, you can keep carry on, but on the meantime, I will change the perms on general chat, and we can move on there. Okay.
Okay. No, that's fine. Cool. Phishing. Phishing generally involves trying to retrieve information from you that you would not usually give away that easy, by doing so without you actually knowing. So, links to phishing sites may be sent to you or even appear in Google searches. There's multiple sites that are currently trying to imitate SpiritSwap, for example. We just got note of a fake Twitter account this morning, that's promoting a phishing website that's basically offering people the ability to claim their reimbursement for the recent attack. This is not a legitimate website and a perfect example of phishing, obviously quite pertinent to today's presentation. It's advised never to click on links that you have been sent or click on links for searches. Always only use official links from official documentation. They're there for a reason. If by some way you are compelled to click on a link from a Google search, never click on paid links or ads. Anyone can spin up an ad to imitate a company profile or protocol. While it's not 100% secure, organic searches are less likely to contain phishing attempts. However, I would again stress and recommend that people only use links from official documentation. Downloadable content is, anything that could be an executable file, such as a PDF or software that you're downloading. These are a risk, as these type of files could contain keylogger malware or spyware. This is the kind of file that's allowed to run on if allowed to run on your device. The next time you say, for example, copy paste a seed phrase, if you're opening up a new wallet or something like that, it'll grab that string of text and automatically give the exploiter access to your wallet and thus your funds. It's advisable that users, always scan files before downloading them to any device that is connected with a crypto wallet. There's tons of file scanning options out there. You just need to do a little bit of research. Again, DYOR. I'm not going to sit here and recommend some, but recommend that everybody looks into that. Users can go one step further by having a PC that's specifically set up for crypto only, so nothing else lives on there. No Discord, no visiting non-crypto related website that includes porn for all you degenerates out there, and nothing unrelated to crypto whatsoever. This isolates your usage outside of crypto and therefore limits potential vectors. And again, the third point being request for key phrases. This one should be so obvious, but it is the most common trap that people fall into, and it's usually out of desperation. Someone might be panicking about a transaction they've made and seeking help, and as a result, usually end up facing social engineering. This is an easy fix. Don't ever give away your key phrase. This is the crypto equivalent of essentially giving your newborn baby away to some random person who walks up to you off the street and asks you to hold your kid. Again, would you do this? No, you'd tell them to fuck off. Same rule applies for your crypto. The instant that you give your key phrase away, your funds are as good as gone. Simple. A good way to circumvent this is to use a ledger. Why? Because when you use a ledger, it's a one-way connection, similar to zero-proof knowledge. You never actually have direct access to your key phrases unless you download them, which is a pretty laborious task. We'll cover this in more detail shortly. If you think you're stupid enough to fall into this trap, do yourself a favor and get yourself a ledger. You literally can't give your key phrase away. It's not that easy. Again, it's important to note that key phrase differs from seed phrase. However, the same rule applies. Anything related to key or seed, do not give it away. So finishing up phishing and moving on to smart contract exploits. So smart contract exploits are rarer in occurrence. than loss of funds via the aforementioned events. However, when they do occur, they generally result in a larger volume of lost funds. So there's two main types of smart contract exploits: phishing or intentionally malicious smart contracts, or an innocent smart contract that has been exploited. So let's look at these in detail. Red flags for spotting potentially malicious smart contract. So these are smart contracts that are specifically designed to steal users' funds. This may be by way of rerouting transactions or exploiting spend limits. As a rule of thumb, it's always best to double check the smart contract that you're interacting with. So early warning signs for a potentially malicious smart contract to be wary of would be checking if the contract is verified or contract verification. So if you're able to find a contract from a project's documents, then this is ideal. However, if you're not able to find the smart contract, you should either ask the developer for it. If the developer doesn't give you access to the smart contract, then this is generally a red flag that would require, further investigation. So to check, if you're wanting to do a test to be able to identify which smart contract you're actually interacting with, this would involve using a test wallet, which we'll cover further on down the track. Essentially, what you would do using your test wallet is execute a contract call on the UI directly. Once approval is complete, click View Transaction in MetaMask, then click on the To section of the transaction. This is your transaction with the smart contract, your interaction with the smart contract. Click on the selected contract to see basically whether the contract is verified or not. So to check whether the contract is verified, you should see a tick next to the status of the smart contract, and the source code should be viewable. So if I just move to the next screen very quickly, there's two examples here. I'll try zoom in. No, I can't. But essentially, if you're able to see, you'll see on the top left-hand side here, there's that green check, contract source code verified. And if you look down, you're able to see the source code of the smart contract here. On the other end of the spectrum, on the right-hand side here, this is what an unverified smart contract looks like. There's no tick next to it, and the source code is not viewable. So let's just quickly look at, why a verified smart contract is important. So having the source code that's viewable or not viewable is very important, because with the source code not being viewable, in the know community members can't actually peer review the functionality of that smart contract. So without this functionality, there literally could be anything written within that smart contract and nobody knows. The second being, without that contract being verified, you can't actually interact, so that is read and write with the smart contract on the blockchain. So that means functions like emergency withdrawal aren't available for the community to use. There are rare circumstances where a contract might not be verified for a reason. So in this case, it should always be queried with the developer directly as to why the smart contract is not verified, and base your decision on the answer that the developer gives you. Again, it's always pertinent to start a dialogue about this within the community, but don't necessarily FUD. It's always good to give people benefit of the doubt, but again, approach everything with caution. The next is, an exploited smart contract. So this is when an innocent or, legitimate smart contract is exploited by way of an attacker finding a loophole within the mechanics and design of the smart contract. This is one of the harder exploit vectors to spot. Common causes for smart contract vulnerabilities can include, but, aren't limited to, indirect execution of unknown code, reentrancy attacks, incorrect calculations, naming issues, etc. And unless you're actually a hacker looking for vulnerabilities, these are going to be very hard to spot, as those contracts are built with the intention of being ironclad. However, a good place to start after checking if the contract is verified is to ensure that the protocol you're interacting with has been audited, and audited by a reputable firm. This is always to be taken with a pinch of salt. Audits are not to be taken for granted. They're not bulletproof, however, they are a good added layer of security. So, let's look at how you can protect yourself. Ensure that the audit has been completed by a reputable firm. So when assessing an audit on a low-level overview, as your common DeFi user is not expected to understand high-level assessment data, it's good to approach this due diligence from an audit firm perspective. So who have they audited in the past? Have these contracts been exploited by any way, means, shape or form? And if so, what was the degree of the exploit? And then the most important thing to consider in this is, how did the audit firm actually react to the exploit if they were responsible for auditing any contracts that have been exploited? Did they take ownership or simply try to indemnify themselves? So doing a background check on those who have secured the smart contract you're about to interact with is an ample place to start. There are other layers of security that protocols can add to their smart contract security network as well. An example of this is active smart contract bug bounties. So these are companies that are comprised of white hat hackers, such as ImmuneFi, for example, that are basically employed by protocols to actively try and attack the contracts and look for exploit vectors. These are good hackers with good intentions. Basically what they're trying to do is front run a contract exploit before a bad actor discovers an exploit and bring it to the protocol's attention before the attacker can execute or carry out an exploit or attack on that contract. A recent example of this approach to security being effective was when a white hat hacker notified Balancer protocol of an issue with their stable and managed pools via a bug bounty program. This gave Balancer a heads up on a potential attack vector and gave them the opportunity to rectify the issue before a bad actor could take advantage of the loophole. So just a bit of information, bit of a shill here. With SpiritSwap V2 contracts, we intend to run a similar program by engaging ImmuneFi to run a program similar to this on our behalf. So this will offer our security peace of mind and an added layer of security to the new contracts that we're adding to our V2 protocol. So let's look at best practice setup to offer as much security as possible. Basically, to summarize this learning session, we've curated a best practice setup list for the tin hat degens out there. But first, I do have to make mention of a disclaimer. So please note this is purely for educational purposes, and we make no promises or guarantees that the following is ironclad, and we take no responsibility for any potential loss of funds following the steps outlined below. As new attack vectors are introduced, your security practices do need to be updated and honed accordingly. The following is purely a list of steps that will allow for heightened security, thus reducing your risk of exposure to an attack on your capital. So this is a 6-step list to a best practice setup. The first being use a computer specifically for crypto. The second being run multiple hot and cold wallets for various use cases. The third being offline storage of keys and seed phrases. The fourth being using additional wallet security such as Rabby. The fifth being never set unlimited spend limits when approving smart contracts. And the sixth being try to clear your approvals and revoke smart contracts on a weekly basis. Let's dive into these in detail. Use a computer specifically designed and set up for crypto. So you would only use this PC for DeFi interactions or installing applications relating to crypto such as MetaMask, Rabby, Ledger, etc. You would not be using this PC for streaming, as this could potentially expose you to malware or phishing links, porn for the same reasons, social media, which will limit the potential of social engineering on that device that you have your keyed and seed phrases associated with. Again, a hot tip here is to never use a second-hand computer, as the previous owner could have been running software that may circumvent some of your security measures. It's always best to use a new PC. This doesn't have to be a $3,000 PC. It can be some super basic, AXA or Dell or something like that from your local warehouse. So long as it's secure and can run basic programs, then you're good to go. The second being to set up and run multiple hot and cold wallets for various reasons. So personally, I like to call this the Trident approach, which involves running 3 separate wallets. We'll start with the highest level of security and work our way down to the lowest level of security in these examples. So the first being using a Ledger wallet for cold storage, and I like to call this the Vault. A Ledger essentially stores your private keys within the device itself and thus helps protect the user against attacks at a wallet level. This may be such as exposure of key phrases or social engineering. The user of a ledger doesn't always have access to the keys of each wallet. Ledgers are great because they do support multiple blockchains and are consistently onboarding support for new and emerging layer 1 and layer 2 blockchains. Having funds on your ledger not only keeps your funds safe from attackers, but also from your own stupidity. If someone's trying to socially engineer you to hand over your private keys, it's an extremely laborious process to access these private keys from Ledger. So in the process of doing so, you're probably going to question your own actions and think twice about handing over your secured information. The drawback to a ledger is the fact that it does require sign-off on the physical device for each and every interaction, making it cumbersome for any DeFi, interaction. Basically, if you're trying to run multiple transactions, it's cumbersome. So as such, treat this wallet as a long-term savings account. This is where profits can be taken from other hot wallets, such as your Degen wallet, which I'll cover next. But essentially, you need to remember that this isn't ironclad. If this wallet interacts with any smart contracts, being the cold wallet, say if you put 100K of your savings into an auto vault and that ends up getting exploited, there's still a potential attack vector here from a smart contract level. So as soon as you deposit your funds from this wallet into a smart contract, they're no longer in custody of the ledger, thus exposing those funds to a different type of attack vector. So as such, it's recommended that your investment strategy for this particular wallet should be adjusted to your risk appetite. The next being a hot wallet, and I like to call this the Degen wallet. So this wallet can be fed or seeded by your cold wallet, your vault storage, and used for rapid or multiple transactions. So for example, if you like to use decentralized leverage trading or swing trading on the spot market, this is the wallet that you would use for that. This wallet can be used on applications such as MetaMask or even better Rabby, which we'll cover in a separate segment. And depending on the storage of your private keys, this wallet should be relatively safe and secure so long as you persist with the security specifications highlighted in this presentation. The keys to this wallet should never be stored in the cloud or on a computer directly. It's recommended that you store these keys on a storage disk or other hardware device that's not online. Keeping the storage of these private keys offline is very pertinent to security. So again, a little note and reminder, this wallet is still a hot wallet and thus susceptible to social engineering or key exposure. So it's recommended that you only keep capital on here that you're using for your primary day-to-day trading. There's multiple investment strategies for using this wallet. A common one could be to take 80% of your profits from trading out of that wallet once a week and send that to your cold storage for added security of funds. 20% of the profit can remain in the hot wallet to increase and compound your equity for future trading. This wallet should never be used for testing of smart contracts. That is the job of the next wallet, which is a perfect segue into the wallet I like to call the human shield. This test wallet is seeded with minimal funds and acts as a human shield. This is the wallet that you would put in harm's way if you were ever unsure of something and wanted to run a test transaction first. For example, if you're wanting to do your due diligence on a certain smart contract, you would use this wallet to interact with the UI on a new and unknown protocol and test the functionality of and identify the smart contract, whether that's verified or not, like we discussed earlier. This wallet is the one that is most likely to be exposed to any deliberate contract vectors. So due to its ongoing, testing for these purposes. So as such, you're recommended to keep a very minimal amount of funds in these wallets, and it's for testing only. Basically, you should have the mindset of whatever you keep in this wallet, you should expect to lose. Third approach is safe storage of key and seed phrases. So as mentioned above, backing up of key and seed phrases is always advisable. You never want to be looked out in the cold and rain, right? But, storage of this data is also a security avenue to be explored. Don't store this data on a laptop. It's susceptible to vectors from malware like keyloggers and other spyware. Don't store this data on a cloud server. Again, that's susceptible to hacks or exploits by way of social engineering or brute force. Do store this data on hardware devices such as storage or gig sticks. When storing this on gig sticks or other hardware devices, it's always an idea to bury this data deep within the storage disk themselves. So this inundates a potential exploiter if someone ever finds that gig stick somewhere and starts poking around in it. If you fill that gig stick or that hardware device with things like photographs, documents, basically inundate the attacker, and bury your private keys deep within that, it's going to potentially buy you a little bit of time, or make any kind of exploit a little bit more difficult for the hacker, throw barriers in the way essentially. And store multiple copies of this in secure locations such as gun safes, vaults, safe deposit boxes, hell, even bury them if you want to. But ensuring the storage devices containing your backup keys is secure is just as important as securing the keys themselves. The next is using additional wallet security such as Rabby. So, Rabby is an extension to MetaMask developed by the guys at Debank. It offers additional layers of security by checking potential issues or discrepancies with the smart contracts you're actually interacting with. So, as stated in their documents, Rabby sends every transaction into a security engine for screening before you sign it to help you identify the potential risks hidden behind the smart contracts. So as you'll see in Exhibit A, Rabby actually highlights the contract you're interacting with, and in the lower green box with this example, it verifies that there's no risk found with that particular contract. It's also pertinent to check the hex data of transactions as well. This can be done both in Rabby and MetaMask. The hex data is verifying that the funds are being sent via the swap router in this example will be returned to the owner wallet. So note that the hex data in this case is showing my address as the return address. Had users actually been using Rabby during our recent DNS attack, it would have alerted users before the transaction was executed that the send to wallet was different from the transacting wallet. It would have also identified that once the hacker changed the routers to spookies, once we shut our routers down, red flags would have been thrown, as you would have, where you see on the left-hand side here, with the top green box, again, it identifies that you're using a SpiritSwap contract here. In the case of our DNS attack, once the attacker changed the routers, you'd have actually seen a spooky swap contract here. The red flag would have been, hey, I'm interacting with SpiritSwap UI, but I'm getting a spooky smart contract. That would be a screaming red flag and, cause for concern, and obviously make you question that transaction before you signed it off. While this isn't a silver bullet, it's another layer of security to be considered. Rabby, in my opinion, offers much quicker call times and executions at an application level. So I've found the user experience to be extremely respectable so far. The next is never set unlimited spending when approving smart contracts. So one potential attack vector at a smart contract level is unlimited spend limits. So by setting a cap on your spend limit when approving a smart contract, you're limiting your risk of exposure to loss. Some smart contracts will actually do this automatically, such as Krunel's Unidex leverage trade. Your spend limit is capped at whatever you're spending at the time. However, there's always a trade-off between user experience and security. Most smart contracts will opt for an unlimited prove limit to spend for the sake of user experience. So this basically means that users don't have to go through and keep reapproving the smart contract each time that they're interacting with it. So again, it's a balance between security and user experience. Essentially, if you're wanting to put a cap on your spend limit, users simply have to, when approving a contract before a transaction, click on the edit under the token approval in MetaMask or Rabby. So you can see up here the amount. Set token or LP spend approved to only the amount you're wanting to transact with at that point in time. So here you can see that I've set the limit to $500 worth of this particular LP token when interacting with a Reaper Farm contract. Save the setting and then confirm the transaction. In doing this, if that contract ever turns malicious or is exploited for whatever reason, your risk of exposure is limited to the spend limit that you've selected in your parameters at the time, meaning that in this example, my 500 USD limit that I've set on this contract is all I can expect to be exploited for should that contract ever be attacked. The sixth and final is housekeeping. Try to clear your approvals or revoke your approvals on a weekly basis. So just like you'd clean your house, housekeeping should be a regular part of your portfolio management and wallet security. This is an added backstop to setting approval caps, as mentioned above. By clearing or revoking your approvals on a weekly basis, you're limiting your risk of smart contract exposure. Clearing approvals simply means that you're revoking those contracts' access to your wallets and the funds you have approved for spending. Doing this on a weekly basis basically means that there's, it's a less cumbersome workload for you, as if you allow these to build up over months, you may be left with hundreds of contracts to revoke, at which point it's not really tenable. I myself am a huge offender of this. I think I tried to clean out one of my wallets a couple of weeks back, and I had 926 smart contracts to revoke, at which point it wasn't really tenable. So in the event that, you may have too many approvals to revoke, you could look to switch wallets entirely and start afresh. However, again, if you've got numerous NFTs that you don't want to move over or VE locked positions, this can prove quite troublesome. So, hope everybody has, learned something today. For those who have any questions, look, I've taken up a bit of time now, but we can shift to questions and answers now. But yeah, hope everyone got some value out of this, and thank you, everybody. Cheers. You go. I think maybe we move back into the Fireside chat now where people can raise their hands. I don't know. This is a bit hodgepodge, isn't it?
Yeah, I can. We can take some questions through the Fireside.
Yeah, fine. Perfect. Feel free to fire them at me. I guess a small update for the community while we wait. We have heard back from our solicitors this morning, and we should hopefully have some updates for you by Monday regarding the compensation, but everything's looking good from our end. At this point, we're just dotting I's and crossing T's, but we're super close to getting this out. I understand that there's been a lot of questions and a lot of people are anxious about this. As I said earlier, trust me, the core team here are among the keenest to get this sorted and put this all behind us. So hopefully that update gives you guys some patience for the next couple of days. Is Rabby an entirely new wallet, so we install extension and transfer funds over from MetaMask? No, it basically integrates with MetaMask directly. So Rabby's really cool because sometimes there are some you may get issues because they kind of talk to each other. MetaMask talks to Rabby and Rabby talks to MetaMask. But what you can actually do is there is a function in Rabby that you can basically disconnect your MetaMask from it. So if you're ever having issues with transactions, you just disconnect your MetaMask from it, and that usually resolves any issues with the transactions. Does Rabby have any mobile app management besides Trust or Safe? Not to my knowledge. You could query that with the Debank team. We've found them very useful so far for any questions and answers we've had on Rabby. What else do we have? Why did the team tweet this? Which altcoin won't survive? I have no idea who tweeted that. I think I might have a question, but it seems like a lot of people have taken issue with that. So I'll query that with our social media manager. Deleted. Waiting for questions to come through. Chris has a ton of contracts to now revoke. Yeah, man, get to it. Yeah, this is why it's important. What I usually do is I set a reminder in my calendar once a week on a Friday afternoon. I'll sit there, crack a beer, and just revoke all of my transactions. The cool thing is I didn't actually. I think I must have skipped this, but you can actually do this directly within Rabby as well. So you can also use things like Debank for revoking, but again, because Rabby is built by Debank, you can actually revoke your smart contracts directly within Rabby under the token security section. The cool part about Rabby to any other revoking product that's available out there that I've seen is that it actually gives you a really detailed rundown as to the level of risk and exposure you actually have. So not only from a smart contract basis, but also from an asset basis as well. So depending on which assets you've approved for spend with certain smart contracts, it will basically give you a breakdown and say, okay, you've got 50% of USDC exposed to specific smart contracts. So that means that these smart contracts can potentially spend 50% of the USDC you currently have in your wallet. So it gives you a really detailed breakdown as to how much exposure you have, which I haven't actually seen in any other UI before. Any plans to deploy on Arbitrum? Look, at this stage, we're purely just focusing on getting V2 out on Phantom right now. That's kind of, what we've started here, so we intend to finish what we've started. I understand that there's a bit of concern from community members after seeing other protocols starting to capitulate or look at other layer ones. Look, we're never going to close the doors to other ideas. But at the end of the day, I think what people seem to always forget is that we're a DAO. So over the next month, I believe it is, or 8 weeks, we'll be fully transitioned to a DAO, at which point the core team, after V2 is out, will essentially just become contractors to the DAO. We won't be a core team. We don't have any ownership over SpiritSwap anymore. You guys do. I think that people haven't really grasped this yet, but as in-spirit holders, you guys call the shots. You guys are the ones who are able to make proposals to update or make changes to SpiritSwap in any way, shape, or form. So if you guys have wanted us to adapt to other layer ones, or side chains, you'd simply need to put a proposal forward for us to do that. And if the DAO votes that in, then that's something we have to execute on your behalf. So I think a lot of people really need to take some time to go back and read our Medium articles that surround and support our approach to governance and our approach to being a DAO. Go onto our Commonwealth. There again, that's available in our official links. Read our Commonwealth DAO voting process and how to actually structure a proposal and make a proposal to the DAO. If you guys have 100K in Spirit, you can make a proposal to make whatever changes you want. So yeah, guys, look, take your time to really nestle in and understand that we as a team don't have centralized ownership over SpiritSwap anymore. You guys do. So I'd really, really recommend that everybody tries to sort of sit with that mindset. You guys are the ones in control. We're simply here on behalf of the DAO contracted to execute your will. So I'd really like to see more and more people having more learned discussions within our Commonwealth forum. And again, if you're wanting to make a change to something, I mean, buying 100K in Spirit is super cheap right now. Like this is your perfect opportunity to rein in some ownership and control over SpiritSwap. Right now is the time. Not shilling or anything, but there's an opportunity there if that's what your intentions are. But irrespective of that, if you're someone who say can't afford 100K in Spirit, but you have a really, really, really crack hot idea that you feel can improve the tokenomics or improve the ecosystem, or you want to make some changes, you can always make a proposal in the Commonwealth area. And essentially what you're doing is you're pitching your idea to people who do have 100K in Spirit in hopes that what they will do is see that proposal and go, you know what, that's actually a really good idea. I'm happy to back this person's idea, go into our snapshot and, basically pitch this proposal to the DAO on your behalf in Snapshot. So again, I would really, really recommend that people go and review the Medium article that I wrote on how our proposal and Snapshot and voting process works. It's always good to sort of, review previous information that's been out there for a while. Interested, would SpiritSwap turn into a satellite DEX for Liquid Driver because they have massive in-spirit bags? Satellite DEX for Liquid Driver. Again, we don't make any core decisions anymore. It's up to you guys. Right now, we're finishing up V2. Next approach will be full on-chain governance, which is like the next step to the ultimate governance, which basically means that at this point, people can make proposals for us to make changes on their behalf. Full on-chain governance will basically mean that anyone, again, who has the right to submit a proposal can actually submit a pull request, a PR directly with all the code coded up, and the community can actually go ahead and then start to code and design changes to the SpiritSwap ecosystem. That's a little bit, it's a little while away yet. Like I said, right now we're just focusing on getting V2 out, but our goal is to be the ultimate DAO, is to be the ultimate decentralized protocol. Thanks for clearing that up. You're welcome. Twitter Spaces, yeah, absolutely. We can consider Twitter Spaces as an environment to host these moving forward. Definitely, I agree that it would probably help with getting more exposure. I guess our key focus for having Fireside in our Discord server at the moment is to really, connect and get to know our core community members who have been diehard and loyal to us for a while. Basically give you guys some level of exclusivity, I suppose, but absolutely could be a good idea for additional marketing. Maybe we'll look at making that transition once V2 is out and we have some more subject matter to talk about, etc. You guys have 8 minutes left, and then we'll be on the hour. Then we have to get back to work. How tight are we with Liquid Driver? Yeah, really tight. Adriano's a great guy. We communicate with him regularly. In fact, I just sent him through some data earlier on profitability of bribes. Yeah, we work super close with those guys. They run a tight ship, pun intended. Yeah, Adriano's been a huge help to SpiritSwap, and we've been a huge help to him, so it's a good symbiotic relationship. FUSD meeting, we didn't have a meeting relating to FUSD with the foundation. Our meeting with the foundation was relating to other subject matter, which, yeah, I mean, that was a private meeting, so there's not too much information that I can really disclose about the nature of that meeting. But yeah, can confirm it did not have anything to do with FUSD directly. We had some questions for them and we discussed the FUSD topic briefly, to which they gave us a response to a few questions we had, but that was pretty much the nature of that, yeah. Opinion on macroeconomics and global recession. Yeah, I mean, the DXY doesn't look favorable at the moment, or at least didn't when I last looked at it. I think, we're at a point right now where crypto is at a space that it hasn't been in the past. Crypto's never sort of seen a looming global recession. There's also other macroeconomics at play as well. There wasn't DeFi during the last crash. DeFi can kind of tend to supercharge things when you throw leverage and liquidations into the mix. We only had to look at the on-chain liquidation of Roche as a primary example of, I guess how the economics of DeFi are a double-edged sword, I suppose. So I think there's a lot of variables that haven't really been present in previous market downturns that are prevalent now. Again, you've got war, you've got the macroeconomic implications of the past 2-year COVID lockdowns that are starting to rear their ugly heads around the corner. It's funny, right? Because crypto was supposedly designed to be a hedge against looming inflation, but right now we're kind of seeing it follow a lot of the TradFi markets, S&P 500, etc. I think, that's a sign of there being a lot of institutional money at play now, whereas, back in 2017, that wasn't really as prominent. A lot of it was, retail investing. At this stage, I think macroeconomics are certainly, in the TradFi market, are certainly having an impact on the crypto market. I don't have a crystal ball, and I won't try to make predictions. I do have my own personal opinions on that, but again, I wouldn't want that to be misconstrued as financial advice. Yeah. Bag of milk. Right. It seems like things are kind of wrapping up here, so I want to thank you guys for your time today. Again, we'll be running another one of these next week. I'd really like to add more value to these crypto fireside chats. I will try to do a proposal or presentation once a week. I think, this will be a good environment for us to, for example, if someone makes a proposal at the DAO, we can take time to sort of discuss those proposals in detail here. Essentially, what I want this to be is a more apt learning environment for all active participants in the SpiritSwap community and our DAO. So again, if there's any subject matter or topics that you might want us to cover next week, feel free to put that in the feedback section of the Discord server. I will try to, like I said, present once a week, but I may not have time each week to put something together. So I'll do my best to kind of have content on hand ready to discuss. But yeah, if there's any feedback around how you guys want these run, again, feel free to pass them on to the mod team or, in our feedback section. But for now, I'll thank you all and bid you farewell. Until next week, guys, thank you very much for your time.